What's up, poker people? My name's Wes, and this is my poker vlog. Today I'm going to be playing a 5-5 no-limit cash game session at Texas Card House in Houston, Texas. I'm going to buy into the game for $2,000. Wish me luck.
This is for entertainment only. I am not a professional poker player. I'm not trying to be a poker coach. I'm trying to share the fun of the games I'm playing. Enjoy the action. This is only the second hand of the session. I haven't even finished setting my camera up, and I've already got pocket kings. I made it $35 and I got re-raised to $125 and the small blind flatted. The player that raised is this guy. The first online player shows King 4? Yeah, he's an action player that plays in my game, so I'm just gonna make it 600. Hopefully we can get stacks in here. So I re-raised to $600. I bought into the game for $2,000. He's got the same stack and he puts it all in the middle. I called, this is gonna be a great start to the night. Are you kidding me? He has aces. Second hand of the night, $4,000 pot. And he just scoops aces versus kings, just like that. After we confirm that he did buy in for 2K and we've got the same stack, I just get up and go to the cage to get more chips. And you won't believe what I saw when I turned around. This guy had racked up his entire stack and was leaving the game after the second hand after getting aces versus kings. And I was so hot about it. I went up and told him, you will never play in my game ever again. And yes, this is a game I host at this card room. And if he had done this to anybody, not just me, on the second hand, when we started the game maybe six-handed, I would say the same thing. It is just so disrespectful. We're coming here to play a game, not just to take money from each other. We are all friends, we have a good time, and when someone comes in, plays two hands, and hits and runs, that is not in the spirit of this game. This is supposed to be a gentleman's game. We don't have a list of 30 players each night waiting to fill his seat. As far as he knew, that could have broken the game right there and it could never have gotten started. So if you've ever hit and run, come on guys, have some respect for your opponents. A player from the 1-3 game that saw all the action decided to join in. He's up here in seat 9 and bought in for $1,000. A raise on his right and he's gonna 3-bet. Looks like he makes it 150 to go. His opponent's putting together a 4-bet. He makes it 400. Seat 9 bought in for $1,000. He's gonna have to decide if he wants to go with this hand or just fold. Oh, and he's all in. The other player snap calls. What do they have? Aces versus kings again. They agree to run 2 full boards, so they'll chop the pot in half for each board. Aces is gonna scoop that one. And aces is gonna scoop the entire pot. I bought back in the game for $3,000. I look down at pocket nines, and there's no straddle, which is kind of rare in this game, so I just make it $15 to go. We get a few callers and we go to the flop. The flop is 5-5-3 rainbow. So we have an overpair, and this is a board that they shouldn't connect with all that often. I c-bet $35. The big blind calls, and the dealer gives the change to the wrong player. We get that corrected, and the turn is the king of hearts. He checks, and I just check behind. The river's a 10, and he checks to me one more time. Now I think it's time to get a second street of value. I do think he can call me with a hand like pocket 6s or 7s, or maybe he just has ace 3, and he's willing to look me up. I bet 50 bucks, and he calls. I show my hand, and there we go. I win my first hand of the session. In 2016, I started a poker clothing line. Check out razorclothing.com. Hand number 61 of the session. Now the rabbit's got the gun. I raise it to $50. I've got 2 black aces. It's my turn to win a big pot. Get a few callers, go 3 ways to the flop. Flop is pretty safe. It's Jack 4-7 with the 7-4 of hearts. It's gonna check to me, and I'm gonna c-bet. Pot has 155, so I bet $100. I get called by the big blind. And the other player decides to fold. The turn is the king of clubs, so now we have the king and jack of clubs on board. The big blind checks to me. I decide to bet again. I bet $200. After some time, the big blind calls 200. The river is the 9 of clubs. The big blind thinks for a second. And then he goes all in for $285. It's a $1,000 pot, so I'm calling. Ah, he has king jack. He turned 2 pair. I look down at pocket 7s and nobody's entered the pot yet. There's a $20 button straddle. I'm gonna raise it up to $60. The player on my left calls. And the player on his left 3 bets to $275. That's a pretty big size 3 bet, but we're pretty deep in this game. I think I'm gonna call and see a flop. With 7s plus, you don't really have to flop a set every time just to win. If I had a pair like pocket 4s, I would just fold, but with pocket 7s, there's times I'm gonna win this hand without even flopping a set. I can even call some bets on some boards. The player next to me also calls. We're going to a flop with $855 in the pot. The flop is ace 9-3. I check. The player on my left checks, and the pre-flop 3-better checks too. Oh, the turn is a 7! I turned a set. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna bet this turn card. If this guy checked back with a set of aces, he's gonna win a lot of money. I bet $400. The player on my left folds. It's back to the pre-flop 3-better. He goes into the tank, and he folds. Man, we got lucky to hit that turn card. This guy said he had pocket kings. After an under the gun raise to $20, I look down at ace deuce suited. I decide to call to see a flop. Maybe there'll be some spades on this board. The button calls. And the small blind raises to $90, and everybody calls that 3-bet. The flop is queen 4 deuce rainbow, so we flop bottom pair and we're in position in this hand. The small blind leads out for a half pot. The next player calls and we've got a decision to make here. We've got bottom pair and a backdoor straight draw. With no spades in the flop, we don't have a backdoor flush draw to go with it, but as you can see, Stuck West decided to call. The player on my left went all in for less, and now we've got a big 4-way pot and a side pot brewing. The turn is the jack of clubs, and I'm done with this hand. The small blind now checks. He was the pre-flop 3-better. And the other player bets $375. I get out of the way. I'm gonna watch this from the sidelines. Small blind goes all in. He puts the other guy in for $860. He calls. They decide to run 2 rivers. The first river is the 9 of clubs, and the second river is the king of clubs. Oh, he has ace 4 of clubs. He's got the nut flush on the top run out and the nut flush on the bottom run out. He's gonna scoop a $2,500 pot. And this is a good example of why continuing with second or bottom pair with a backdoor flush draw is the only way to go. I put out the double straddle of $20. We get a couple callers before it gets around to the small blind, who makes it $90 to go. I have 7-8 suited. I call 90. Player on my left calls, and we're going 3 ways to the flop. The flop is ace 6-4, so I have a gut shot draw, and it's the 4 of clubs, so I do have a backdoor flush draw. The raiser bets 165, and I decide to peel 1 card in position. The other player folds, so we're heads up now. The turn is the king of spades, so I don't hit my 5 and I don't turn a flush draw. But now the small blind checks. So I decide maybe we can win this hand by the other way, which is bluffing. I bet $320. The small blind calls. And the river's a jack of spades, so now there's 4 spades on board. But he checks to me again. What do you guys think? Is this gonna work? I'm gonna fire one more time. I bet $475. I don't think I have to make this very big. If he doesn't have a spade, he'll just have to fold. He folded. I did it. I'm gonna make a comeback, baby. In this hand, I decide to double straddle $20. A couple players limp around, and as we get to the small blind, he's gonna make it $135. Now this is the same player from the last hand, raising again from the small blind. I have 10-8 suited in hearts, and I'm gonna call and see a flop. The flop is Jack 9-5 rainbow, but it's the Jack of hearts. We are open-ended with a backdoor flush draw and a backdoor straight flush draw. The pre-flop raiser is putting together some chips, and he c-bets 135. I've got an opportunity here where I could raise, but I'm just gonna call. There's a lot of turn cards that I could start putting a lot of pressure on him with, and I'm gonna wait for one of those cards to come. And the turn is the 8 of clubs. So of course I do improve, but not in the way that I wanted to. I turn a pair of 8s. With third pair and a straight draw, if I was to bet here, I would just be bluffing. And this board isn't very scary. If he just has ace jack or any other pair, I don't think he would fold. So I decide to check behind, and the river's a 6. The pre-flop raiser starts putting some chips together. He's gonna lead this river. He bets kinda small, 160. If he had an overpair or a hand like ace jack, I don't think he would slow down on this turn card. Now there are 4 to a straight on the board, but again, this guy shouldn't have a 7, should he? I'm just gonna call, and let's see what he has. He doesn't want to show his cards, and neither do I. And finally he shows king queen for king high. I take it down with third pair. Next weekend, I'm going to be going to Austin to Texas Card House. I'm not only going to be playing on the Saturday live stream, but I'm going to be commentating on the Friday live stream. For more information, follow me on Twitter. My good buddy Albert, who you may have seen on the Austin live stream, has now joined the table. He's just off the screen here on the right. He just got back from dinner and drinking, and he's gonna make it $500 to go after a $40 raise and a call. And the player on his left ships it for $1,800. It folds around to Albert, and he actually doesn't snap call because he doesn't really have a very good hand, but he's already put in $500, so he says, let's go. They agree to the terms that we call twice, 2 turns, 2 rivers. The all-in player shows ace king high, and Albert shows ace 9. Now he loses the top, but Albert's actually gonna chop the bottom, so he's gonna get 1/4 of this pot, and ace king is gonna win a 50% profit. There's an under the gun raise of 15, and Albert decides to make it $85. I have ace 4 suited in position. I'm gonna call 85. The big blind also calls 85, and under the gun calls 85. Oh, the flop is ace queen 8 with 2 spades, top pair, and a flush draw. When it checks to Albert, he c-bets $250. I'm not gonna raise right here. My kicker is so bad, I don't really want to get it all in, but I am gonna call. I call 250. The big blind also calls, and under the gun gets out of the way. We have a $1,000 pot, and the turn is a jack. It's not a spade. The big blind checks. Albert bets $430. I'm definitely not folding. I'm gonna call 430. After calling the 430, I'm only gonna have about 12 to 1300 behind, and it's gonna get all in the middle if I hit this flush. Let's see the river. God dang it! Why can't I ever hit a flush? So stupid!
1175? I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here. 1175. That was a joke between me and Wes.
I know. I wish you had money to loan me if I bust.
Huh?
I wish you had money to loan me if I bust. But I guess if you bust me, you do have money to loan me.
After losing $2,000 on the second hand of this game and reloading for $3,000, I had all the money I brought on the table. And I texted Albert, hey buddy, I might need to borrow some money tonight if things don't go well. He told me how much he had, but I didn't want to take away from his own bullets. But I guess if I lose to him, that means he's winning and he can let me borrow some money. So let's think about this hand. I lose to all the obvious big aces, ace, king, queen, or jack, but I also chop with all the smaller aces, and we just saw Albert put $2,000 in with ace 9, so I call. He shows king 10, he turned a gut shot! Are you kidding me? If you don't have a friend who will just throw you a 5K brick in the middle of a poker game, do you really have friends at all? Alright, well I reloaded for $5,000. I'm gonna try to grind it back up. This might end up being a very expensive night. Alright, I'm back on the horse. I'm straddling $20 on the button. I've got a fresh stack and I'm ready to go. Under the gun raises to 75. We get a call, and Albert also calls, and I call 75 on the button. We've got 4 players going to the flop. I have queen 9 of spades. The flop is 9, 5, 6 rainbow with 1 spade. The pre-flop raiser checks, the next player checks, and Albert bets $150. With top pair, I'm gonna call 150. I call. The pre-flop raiser folds, and the other player folds. Heads up. Oh, the turn is a jack of spades. That gives me a flush draw to go along with my pair. Albert bets $275. I'm gonna call. River is a 7. That is nothing. Albert checks, and I'm just gonna check. He shows 9, 7. Oh, he rivered a 7 for 2 pair. What is going on? He is so lucky. I straddle. There's a middle position raise to 30, and we're gonna have like 4 or 5 calls here, and then I'm gonna have the option to only call 20 with ace 6 to see a flop, so I call 20 and we're going to a flop. The flop is ace 7-5, so I hit an ace. I actually have 3 cards to a straight flush with my 6 of spades. I check and the original raiser checks, but the player on his left bets 125. It quickly folds around to me, and I'm gonna call 125 with top pair. The original raiser decides to call as well, and now we're going 3-handed to the turn. Oh, the turn is a 4 of diamonds. This actually makes me an open-ended straight draw along with my top pair, so I check. The player who bet the flop now bets 290. I'm not folding now. I call 290, and now we're heads up. So we need a 3 or an 8 on the river to have a straight. The river's a jack of clubs. I check. And he bets 525. Now remember, this wasn't the original raiser. I'm not saying he can't have an ace, but he doesn't have to have an ace. And I decide I'm just gonna call. And he mucks his cards. Let's go! With a button straddle of 10, there's a raise to $65, and in the cutoff, I call with 10-8 suited. Small blind calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. The flop is ace 7-5. Nothing really going for me. It checks to me and I just check. Oh, the turn is the 9 of diamonds, so I turn an open-ended straight draw. The small blind, who wasn't the pre-flop raiser, bets 105, and now the pre-flop raiser just calls. This is a great spot to raise because neither player should have a very strong ace. I decide to make it 315. If I can get these guys just to fold right here, then I don't have to hit a 6 or a jack, which you know we're never gonna hit. The small blind calls. Oh, and the pre-flop raiser calls. That totally failed. Well, we can still hit a 6 or a jack. Oh, that card was already out there! Go away! On this river ace, I'm going to completely chicken out when it checks to me because I have no idea what these guys have. I don't know if this ace is gonna be a card that they're gonna fold or if they already have an ace. First guy shows 10-9 for a pair of 9s. Small blind has king-9 for a better kicker. And I definitely think a bet on that river would have gotten a fold. I've got pocket 10s. The Bank of Albert opens to $40. I re-raise to 125. The hijack cold calls 125. And Albert calls as well. Flop is 10-4-3. I flop top set. Finally, something good is happening. Under the gun checks. We went 4 ways to this flop for 125. What a pot we're gonna have here. They check to me, I'm gonna bet small. 225, just under half pot. 2 quick folds. Oh, and Albert folds. And now we improve to pocket jacks. With a $20 button straddle out there, I make it $60 to go in the big blind. The hijack calls and the button calls. We're going 3 ways to a flop. Oh, the flop is king, queen, 5. 2 over cards. I'm just gonna check. They both check. We see a turn. It's a 5. I'm just gonna check again, and the river's a 4, and we check this hand down, and I show and I win. I guess it could be a lot worse. Limping, limping. It limps around to me, and I look down at king, queen suited, and I'm gonna make it $75 to see a flop. Who's in? Got 1 caller, 2 callers. 3 ways to the flop. Flop is jack 5-6 with the 5 of clubs and the jack 6 of spades. I've got 2 overcards, a backdoor straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw. I'm gonna see bet mostly as a bluff, and I get called by 1 player, and I get called by the other player. I'm gonna need a 7 of clubs on the turn. Now the 10 of clubs would have been the perfect card, but I picked up a flush draw. This is a card I'm definitely gonna barrel with. So when they check to me, I'm gonna bet around, what? Under the gun just leads out $400? I can't be too mad about this. I want these guys to be interested in this pot. I have the second nut flush draw. The other guy calls and I call as well. The river's 10 of clubs. Oh, okay, I'm okay with you being on the river and not the turn 10 of clubs. I have the second nut flush. Under the gun checks. It's over to the other player. Oh, he seems like he's thinking about betting. He's getting black chips together. Oh, he's betting $900. Should I raise this river? Okay, the only other flushes available are the jack high flush because I have the king and the queen. He could definitely have ace jack of clubs. I think maybe I'm just gonna call. Maybe we can get the other player to call behind with a straight. I call 900. I just don't think we can get a worse flush to call, and there is a better flush out there, but no, he has 6-4 of clubs. We take down a $3,800 pot. The momentum is building, and we have pocket kings. Let's go. There's a straddle of 15 with one caller, and I make it $65 to go. The player on my left calls, and the big blind calls. We're gonna go 3 ways to the flop. It's an okay flop. It's queen 10 8 rainbow. It's check to me, and I'm gonna see bet this flop. It's 220 in the pot. I'm gonna make it 125. Player on my left calls, heads up to the turn. It's an ace. It's not a great card, but I'm not really worried about this as much as if it had been on the flop. But I'm gonna go ahead and check. Let's see what this guy does. He bets 250, and I'm not gonna fold just yet. I do have a gut shot to a jack that would give me Broadway. I call. And the river's an 8 of spades. This doesn't really do much. I check. And he bets 425. So he's basically telling me that he had ace queen or ace 10. This river actually improves me to where now I beat queen 10 and I beat all the pair and draws that bricked out. I call. He shows 8 and 9 offsuit. He called with bottom pair and a gut shot, and river trips. Come on. I am trying to get some of this money back. I'm putting a $50 button straddle on. We got a small blind who calls. There's a couple callers, and it gets around to me, and we get to try it again with pocket jacks. Here's our do-over. I'm gonna bomb this. I make it 350. The small blind snap calls. Any of you other guys want to limp for 50 and call 350? Anyone? Hey, you know you're still in the hand? You gonna call? They both fold. All right, now this time I just need the flop to not come king, queen, 7. Oh, come on. Okay. This is a different scenario. I'm heads up in position. I can see bet this because I might actually have the best hand. And he check raises to $1,000. I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm just done. I'm not playing jacks anymore. Okay, I'm gonna need to regroup if I'm gonna get back any of the money that I've lost so far today. Got about $6,000 in my stack. Let's just start right here. 75 to go. I have jack 10 offsuit. Not as good as suited, but we're 4 ways to the flop. All right, we flop a jack. It's a good start. I'm gonna check to the pre-flop raiser. He c-bets $100. All right, it folds around to me. I'm gonna call. Turn is the 8 of diamonds. Checkity check, I check. Pre-flop raiser bets $300, and I'm gonna do a move that you guys haven't seen very often on this vlog. Did you see that? Let's watch it again. In the muck. Right into the muck. Top pair. In the muck. Albert's got a big ol' $100 straddle on the button, limping, and I decide just to call in the small blind with jack 9 suited. Nobody else calls. We go heads up to the flop. Flop is queen, queen, 6 with the queen of spades, so I do have 3 spades. I check. Albert bets 100. I want to see a turn card. I call. Turns a 9 of clubs, so now I make a pair. I'm probably calling a turn bet. Let's see what he does. He bets 175, which is not much more than he bet on the flop. Yeah, I'm definitely not folding to 175. I call.
Chase is a race, Wesley. Wesley!
So Albert bets $400 on this river. And the question now is, should I call a $400 bet from a man who was just randomly yelling my name out loud for no apparent reason? I think I should. He shows 10-5 for 10 high, and I take it down. Good call, Wesley. I ran out of space on my memory card, and this is actually the footage from the YouTube live stream from that night. We're gonna watch about the next 2 hours in super fast speed. If you don't already know, I do a live stream on YouTube every Saturday when we have these games. You can watch us play live, you can listen to what we're talking about, you can ask questions on the chat, and I'll interact with you guys. But I wanna point out, I went from about $6,000 starting at the end of this session, probably the last about 2 hours, and I built my stack up slowly, trying to get back as much money as I could. Now, I didn't get back to $10,000, but I'm pretty happy with what I did do. This was a tough session with a lot of tough losses, but I just kept grinding. And this is my stack as I racked it up, $7,885. That's almost sober Albert in the back messing up my video.
What's up, Albert?
Hello.
You want to be on the video?
No.
Okay. Trying to think of what to say. All right, so that was a crazy session. I ended up getting in the game for $10,000, which is just stupid. And I ended up cashing out $78.85 after grinding for hours. We played a more than 10-hour session. And I'm kind of happy, like I always say, with not losing at all and making a comeback. Yeah, it was just a crazy session.
If you like watching me almost lose $10,000 on a weekly basis, subscribe to my videos. Also hit that like button down there on this video and check out razorclothing.com. I appreciate it.